Sergeant Bob Beres has been with the South Carolina Highway Patrol for over 24 years. In this special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I sit down with Bob Beres one-on-one. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Well, Sergeant Bob, it is so good to see you.
Always a pleasure.
Likewise. Yeah. Man, gosh, you've been busy lately.
Doing a lot. We've got a lot going on. It's summertime, and we're staying active in the community and also on the patrol.
You talk about the patrol. Obviously, we had a nightmare a couple of days ago with the Downhole Bridge top situation. When you heard about that, what was going through your mind?
Well, first of all, I was hoping nobody got hurt. I don't want to see anyone get hurt. It's a fortunate incident, and again, vehicles can be fixed, but thank God there was no loss of life.
Right, you're right about that. Let me turn back to you, because obviously you are a proud grandfather these days. Who is Bob Beres as a grandfather?
Well, grandson was born 6 months ago, and we're excited about it. And I told my son that baby will probably learn how to walk when he's 4 years old, but I don't want to put him down. So we're proud to have two boys, and my oldest one had the baby. So we're blessed and proud.
You are. And obviously we were talking about this off camera, but Sunday's the big day. South Carolina Highway Patrol versus Georgia Highway Patrol for Special Olympics.
Special Olympics, we're going to play the Georgia Patrol at the River Dogs. This is our 4th year playing them. We played them the first 2 years at the River Dogs Stadium, and last year we went to Georgia. And we actually played Georgia, Florida, and Alabama. And we beat all three of them. So we're bringing it back to the Joe, and it's for a good cause. It's all the money goes to Special Olympics, and it helps out over 25,000, almost 26,000 athletes right here in South Carolina. So, you know, when that money is able to send all those athletes to winter and summer games, and you see them getting the medals and the ribbons and the smile on their face, and know how hard they competed to get those medals, and it warms your heart to know that you raised some money to help send them to these games, and it's an amazing cause, and it's close to our hearts, and we try to do everything we can to support it. This is just one event that we do during the year. You know, we stand on top of donut shops. We do Coast to Capitol Run. Right. We do the polar plunges. So, you know, you have to put a little sweat equity in there, because nobody's just going to give you something for nothing. So it's close to our hearts.
Yeah. You talk about your heart. I want to take you back to 1970. When I was doing my research, I understand that your mom and dad escaped from Hungary to Austria. Where are you emotionally when you look back at that time?
I never forgot where I came from. When my mom and dad escaped from Hungary and ended up in the refugee camp, I was born in that refugee camp, and we came to the United States with $500. My mom and dad. Shortly after arriving, we lived with a church, Calvary United Church of Christ, for the first 7 or 8 years of my life. We lived in a 3-room house, and my parents, in exchange for living there, they took care of the church grounds, cleaned the church, cut the grass, and so forth. And my mom, she walked to a factory. She made $2 an hour. She was doing the inside of the light bulb, the little filament. She was working in a factory doing that. And my dad worked in construction. So they worked hard all their lives. And I also have a sister. She was born here. She's a police officer also in Connecticut. And going through life, I just always wanted to do my best and not disappoint my parents, to know that they went through all this to bring us here to give us a better life, and I didn't want to just get caught up in doing some knucklehead stuff. Yeah. So I always wanted to make my dad proud and my mom proud.
And you talk about your dad. I understand that he was basically an old school guy when it came to doing things by the book. Describe your mom for me.
My mom was hardworking. She expected you to be well-mannered, and she corrected you if you weren't. So she was very giving, and still is very giving. She's very giving of her time, and she always looks at the brighter things in life. I could say, Mom, it's 20 below zero outside. It's been that for the last 6 months. She goes, you know, but the sun's going to come out, so just stay positive. You know, it's never going to be freezing forever. So that's the kind of attitude she has, and she makes a penny stretch and a dollar stretch for sure. I remember as a kid sitting there cutting coupons with my mom every Sunday, and I swore I'll never cut a coupon when I grew up, and I'm doing that every Sunday now, cutting my coupons out with my mom. So.
Yeah. I know after that particular period, obviously you spent 4 years in the Navy. Talk to me about Bob Beres as a military guy.
I went into the Navy. To me, it was a way to give back to a country that allowed us to come here and have a job and allow my parents to raise a family. And it's still important to me to give back, and that was one way. And I spent 4 years in the Navy. I spent 8 months in Operation Desert Storm, Desert Shield, shortly after coming out of the Navy. And after my 4 years, I knew I didn't want to make it a career. I knew I wanted to do something in life to help people.
Right.
I just didn't know what it was going to be. I didn't grow up wanting to be a policeman, but I knew I wanted to do something in public service.
Yes.
So when I left the Navy, I left with a sea bag and no job. I didn't know what I was going to do. So by the time I walked to the end of the pier,
Right.
I felt like God put his hand on my head and said, I want you to be a policeman.
Wow.
And that's clear as day, the only way I can describe it to you.
Wow.
And here I am almost 24 years later as a trooper.
From that time to now, and you just say 24 years as a state trooper, what is the biggest difference in your mind as far as law enforcement and public service?
The biggest difference is, in today's climate, it's hard as a law enforcement officer to connect with the community. Back when I was a new trooper, I went into the little grocery stores, I spoke to people, I went to the bank and talked to the people, and I went to the grocery store and talked to everybody.
Right.
I stopped and spoke to people, and I believe having a strong presence in the community allows you to work better with the community.
Sure.
Today, we're working a lot of collisions, we're busy.
Right.
We're driving from wreck to wreck to wreck, so you're not having that interaction that you did years ago with the community.
Right.
Population's more.
Oh, yes.
We have almost 4 million registered vehicles in South Carolina, so a lot of people coming to our coast.
Yes.
A lot going on, but we need to get back to getting more involved in the community, and when we do that through our community relations office.
And I want to take you down memory lane because obviously in 2007 something dramatic happened. You actually were saving up money for another job to get a boat, but unfortunately your neighbor's house got damaged and you decided to donate your money to the neighbor's family to get her house.
Yeah, in 2007 I was selected as Trooper of the Year for
Yes.
that happened about almost 10 years before that.
Wow.
I saved up money. I wanted a boat, so I went to work at Lowe's, and I
Yeah.
saved up for 4 years, and I was able to pay cash for a boat.
Right.
And so I would go fishing with my son out in the Charleston Harbor.
Yes.
And when we came home, I remembered this elderly woman. She would always fish with cane poles by Highway 78 at the water wheel in Dorchester County, and I'd always see her fishing with that cane pole. And I remember that lady lives at the end of my street. I don't really know her.
Right.
She was a little African American lady, about 70, I think she was 72 years old.
Wow.
And I said, well, you know what, maybe I can drop these fish off to her. So I pulled up to her house and I honked the horn, and she finally came on, and I told her who I was, and I lived down the street, and I'd like to give her some fish, so she came out with a pan. So every time I went fishing, I'd stop by her house and I'd hit the horn twice, and she'd come out with a pan. It was like clockwork. When she
Right.
heard the horn,
Right.
she knew fish was coming.
Right.
So I'd always give her my fish, and that went on for about a month.
Wow.
And I came home from Connecticut, and driving by her house, I saw her house was burnt down, and she was sitting on the front steps. And when I walked up to her, I said, Miss Minnie, I said, what happened? She said, my house burnt down, and I believe her husband built her that house in 1960 something. They had a dirt floor.
Wow.
And I said, what can I do for you?
Right.
And she said, I don't need anything, Bob. She said, God will help me. And I'm thinking, here's a woman that has nothing
Right.
and says God will help her. And people ask me for stuff every day that have stuff.
Right.
So I knew I have to do something. Number one, I couldn't go fishing again, knowing I'm going to drive by her house with fish and I can't give it to her.
Sure.
And number two, here's a lady without a house. I could always get another boat.
Sure.
So I went home that afternoon and I put that boat in the paper, and I said, I'm selling this boat to help my neighbor. And
Right.
some gentleman from Little River called me,
Oh, yeah.
and he came down and bought the boat, and so we gave her the cash.
Right.
and the community came together, and the company was able to donate a mobile home to her.
Oh, good.
The electric company came and hooked the power up, and landscape company put some bushes and trees in the yard, and I remember Lowe's gave her some
Yes.
stuff, and she had clothes and food, and so she was well off a short time later, just a couple weeks later, and it made us feel good knowing that we could help somebody, especially in our own backyard.
Yes.
So every time she saw me, she gave me a hug, and
Wow.
she unfortunately she passed away, I believe, about 2 years ago, but her name was Miss Minnie Cummings.
Wow, sorry to hear that. When I was listening to your interview with a local television station, they called you the everyday hero, but you said, "Hey, I'm not no hero."
No, I'm not no hero.
What is your definition of a hero?
Wow. Our military that's out there each and every day protecting us so we can have this interview
Sure.
and sit in the library
Yes.
and speak freely.
Right.
And also military members that gave their lives for our freedom, that are no longer with us but are with us in spirit. Those are the heroes.
Obviously, you spent 24 years as a South Carolina Highway Patrolman. What's next for you in your mind?
Well, there's a lot of life ahead of me, I hope. So there's a lot I want to do. I just picked up playing the guitar not too long ago, about 6 months ago. So I always wanted to play the guitar. I have a picture of me one when I was about 6 years old, and I just let it go by the wayside, but I picked it back up. So I want to do that. Eventually, when I retire, I want to go do something else in the community.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what yet, but
Okay.
we'll see what life has to offer. But I'll come up with something.
I know you will.
I'll come up with something.
I know you will. Well, Sergeant Bob Beres, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this.
Hey, thank you very much. Thank you.
Anytime.